I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but I play Fire Emblem. That means I have a brilliant, strategic mind. I will come up with some of the most harebrained maneuvers to reach my objectives, and I'll also rout your entire army if I can get away with it, even if all I'm supposed to do is touch the seat. When it comes to Mega Man and Bass though, I've been asked why I separated from the other 11 games. While I've dropped a few hints in the comments, it never felt like the right place for a debate on the title, plus, I figured I could just address it real quick when I did the full review. The more I thought about it though, the more I realized I probably could make a full video on it, which would give me content for an extra Sunday, alleviate some of the pressure to do said review, which is going to take a lot more effort than most classic titles, and not distract from it when I do by starting an argument over something that, let's be real, is more of a fan term for sweaty nerds than something we need to go to war over. Bam, there's my strategy brain, taking out your best unit. I'll be trying to do this in good faith, examining both sides even though I clearly lean one way. If I miss anything, feel free to correct me, I just ask that you wait until the end in case I tackle anything out of order, and so that you get where I'm coming from. All that out of the way, I'm Wes, the Explosion, and today we're debating whether Mega Man and Bass is a mainline title or a spin-off. One of the biggest arguments against Mega Man and Bass being mainline is just how different it is, but at the same time, it's not that different. Mega Man's still there, he can still jump, slide, and charge, all of which were standard when the game was released. Heck, it even uses the plot of new bad guy, but it's actually Wily the whole time. Tried and true. The weird stuff is how there's a branching path to take on the bosses, which, while not exactly the same, isn't too far off from how 7 started giving you only half of the bosses after the intro stage. The shop where you trade in bolts became standard in 7 as well, with 8's giving you more permanent upgrades like it does here. Heck, this game even uses the same graphical style as 8, with them reusing sprites and even 2 bosses, 3 counting Green Devil. So why isn't this one given the same status? Heck, a lot of people even refer to this one as Mega Man 8.5, not just because of when it was made, but also because of just how similar the two are. The only real difference left is that you're not allowed to play as anyone other than Mega Man in a mainline Mega Man game. Until 9 lets you play as Proto Man anyway, which also kinda justifies the 8.5 numbering. But he was DLC, so he doesn't count. Oh wait, he comes standard in 10, doesn't he? So much for that. Bass even comes back for 10. Him working largely the same way he does in Mega Man and Bass, his lack of a double jump being the only major omission. He is DLC though, so they had some nerve putting his face on the title screen unless that was patched in later. My point is, while odd, we can't discount the game because of these differences. Not unless we also kick out several titles that I don't think anyone would argue aren't mainline. So if we're going to count those as exceptions, rather than disqualifiers, what would we define mainline by? I think I have 4 pretty decent criteria that I can run by you. The first, is Mega Man a playable character? Yes. Second, is it a platformer? Again, yes, and this also explains why Battle and Chase and the Power Fighters are considered spin-offs. The third, is it on consoles, which is what knocks the Rockman World or Roman numeral Game Boy titles to a side series? And the answer here is no, right? Mega Man and Bass is a Game Boy Advance game after all. Rockman and Forte, though, was originally on the Super Famicom, its homeland of Japan's equivalent to the Super Nintendo, so it does qualify. After all, if we discounted everything that got a portable edition, that'd get rid of most of the mainline titles due to the 3DS's eShop, which is now dead. Nice. As an aside, I'd modify the qualifications of other series to their main character as playable, keeping things to the same genre, and keeping the game to the same hardware format, be it home console or handheld. The idea is, can the people already playing the series continue to do so without having to buy a separate, same-gen gizmo or hardware? In fact, one of the big reasons Mega Man and Bass was made was as an alternative to 8, since the series had jumped to other non-Nintendo platforms and some of the audience might have been left behind. You could even argue that this makes the entry even more mainline than 8. Even for the simply on consoles criteria, the game even comes back around, it having a port on the Wii U's eShop which died the same day as the 3DS's. The fourth qualification, is it done primarily by Capcom? This is the other bit that knocks the World games off the list, them being farmed out to other developers. Not to disparage them, only the second one felt like a mistake, and on multiple levels at that. Capcom handled Rockman and Forte personally though, so yes, by all the metrics I had laid out, it absolutely qualifies. Fans rejoice, is what I'd like to say, but this is only the first half of the argument, and as I've already mentioned, I fall on the other side. Still though, I do want to acknowledge that there's a strong basis for this being mainline. Now on to the counterpoints, and we're starting with the pettiest reason available, and one we've already touched on in passing, the lack of mainline numbering. Every other mainline title has a number on the end, with the exception of the first title, which is called simply Mega Man. For the sake of argument, and since I do want to be thorough, allow me to argue. The importance of numbering kinda varies from series to series. With Mario, you have Super Mario Bros. 1, 2 and Doki Doki, and 3, and after that, you only get numbered sequels here and there. Pretty much, with Mario, if it's a platformer, it counts. With Sonic, I can't even tell, but while a few use numbers, like the first 3 games and the one on GBA, the majority don't bother. While I would love for an expert to correct me, I get the impression that as long as it's canon, it counts. With stuff like Shuffle, Dream Collection, and That Time He Got Murdered on a Train, not. Oh, and Boom is its own thing. When it comes to Mega Man though, numbers are important. It having Mega Man through 11, X through 8, 0 through 4, Battle Network through 6, Star Force 5 billion versions through 3, and Legends and Legends 2. Only ZX bucking that trend with its second game, Advent. There seems to be a focus put on them, and if I can be petty, it would feel pretty stupid describing 9 as the 10th mainline classic title. We start doing stuff like that, and we get into Final Fantasy territory, which has different designations between territories, stuff like 10-2, which does not mean 11 or 12, and infinite iterations of 7. You do you, but I don't want to read the flowchart. Still, while I have spent a lot of breath arguing this point, I actually wouldn't kick Mega Man and Bass out of the club if that were it. But it's not. The next has a good deal more weight, that the game was originally Japanese only. Released in April 1998 in Japan, the rest of the world didn't get it until almost 5 years later, March 2003, with the Game Boy Advance port. At the time, either Mega Man or Street Fighter was Capcom's biggest franchise, both sharing worldwide appeal. A new entry was not something that should have been locked behind emulation or bootlegs, at least if it was considered important. That's the sort of treatment spin-offs get, and not even most spin-offs. A lot of the games that didn't make it over here being due to them being made for whatever the hell a WonderSwan is. While we did get it, it was an eventually situation, and it's been suggested that when I get around to reviewing it, I go for the Super Famicom version due to the GBA's screen crunch, so a lesser version at that. Kinda branching off of that, the game also has a sequel, Rockman and Forte Challenger from the Future. It's another Japanese exclusive title, and when adapting the lore for comics, Ian Flynn was told by Capcom to stay away from this one. After they'd already used parts of Super Adventure Rockman, that's really saying something. I'm not going to count this against it too much, since it's another WonderSwan title, didn't review well so I understand it being cut off, and it's described as being more of a sequel to World 2, which I wish wasn't canon, but being linked to this one by name really doesn't help with the already shaky ground Mega Man and Bass finds itself on. The last bit, though, is probably the most damning. Mega Man and Bass doesn't show up in any collections, not in the Anniversary Collection way back when, or, more significantly, in the Legacy Collections. The only other major omission is 11, which came out after. And these are the Legacy Collections. Legacy, as in what you leave behind and what you'll be remembered for. The only things that have been missing from them so far have been spin-offs and side stuff, like Network Transmission, Maverick Hunter X, and the Rockman World games. If you look into it, some say that this was meant to be an alternate version of 8, and to double back, the creators seem to back this up, them worried about longtime fans who didn't have a PlayStation or Sega Saturn. A really strong point for this being mainline, but I think all of that gets erased by the current state of things. While it may have been, at one point, considered one of the core titles, not only is it excluded from the current collections, it's not available for purchase anywhere, unless you get a used copy. With the Wily Wars on NSO and 2 Power Fighters on their arcade system, it almost feels like they're purposefully excluding this one for some reason. To sum things up, and to answer the question that I've been asked a few times by now, I don't consider Mega Man and Bass mainline because Capcom doesn't. While I've never heard them say anything official on the subject, Actions speak louder than words, and we'll probably all be dead before they say anything definitive about Mega Man, so that kinda has to be good enough. That's my personal take on the Great Debate, as well as my excuse for why I haven't reviewed, ranked, or even played Mega Man and Bass all that often. I would like to clarify 4 things before we close things out though. First, me saying that I don't think its mainline shouldn't be a reflection of its quality. I've enjoyed spin-offs and side games just as much, sometimes even more, than those that get the special treatment. Not necessarily saying I like it either though, so stay tuned for that eventual review. Just gotta do several playthroughs before I do. Second, I still consider it canon, even if it isn't required playing. Third, while I feel like this should be an open and closed case, this is still largely my opinion. While I think I've done a pretty good job stating my take, at the same time, things have been left open to interpretation enough that if someone were to say that Mega Man and Bass were mainline, I'd respectfully disagree as opposed to just outright calling them wrong. And fourth, I reserve the right to recant my stance if Capcom says otherwise, starts treating it the same as 1 through 11, or even if someone manages to make just one heck of a convincing argument opposed to mine. I am talking sweep you off your feet, take you to dinner and a show first kind of counter-argument though. With all that laid out, I think it's pretty obvious what you need to do in the comments. There really is only one question here. As always, thanks for watching, and maybe consider subscribing if you're into Mega Man. I'm also slowly working on a Bass video, though I need this game and Battle and Chase to complete it. Battle is my forte.